These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
This episode of The Murder in My Family is brought to you by Madison Reed. Madison Reed hair color is gorgeous, salon quality, multi-dimensional, ammonia-free, and delivered to your door for less than $25. Visit madison-reed.com for 10% off, plus free shipping, on your first hair color kit with promo code FAMILY. That's code FAMILY.
If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Murder in My Family. Please allow me a moment to share some important information before we get started. If you find that you enjoy this podcast, I hope you'll take a minute to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast so that the show can continue to grow and reach new listeners. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderInMyFam or by searching for the Murder in My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show via a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I give shout-outs to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Sean McMahon, Erica Kelly, host of Southern Fried True Crime, and Robin Warder, host of The Trail Went Cold, both of which are great podcasts that I can't recommend highly enough. And thank you to all of the supporters that generously donate and keep the podcast going and improving. And one last thing before we get started. I wanted to let you know that the website discoverpods.com is currently accepting nominations for your favorite podcast. Some of the categories include Best New Podcast of 2018 and Best True Crime Podcast of 2018. If you think The Murder in My Family is worthy of consideration, please visit discoverpods.com and submit your nomination form before October 26th. It only takes a few minutes, and you can support your favorite podcast. And now, with all that out of the way, on with the show. Willianna Anita Dunn, better known as Anita to family and friends, vanished in May of 2016. It wasn't typical for the 61-year-old widow to drop from sight, and it didn't take long for her sister Mona and daughter Anna to take notice that something wasn't right. Anita worked in the housekeeping department of a local hospital in the Joplin, Missouri area. She was proud of her job there and was well liked by coworkers. Anita had once won an Employee of the Year award. And as a bonus, Anita's sister Mona also worked at the hospital. On Saturday, May 28, 2016, Mona, who was off, had sent text to Anita. But since Anita was working a full shift at the hospital, she couldn't immediately respond to the text. However, once her shift ended, Anita texted her sister back later that evening, and everything seemed fine. The next morning, on Sunday, Mona once again texted Anita, but this time she didn't get any replies. She followed up with more texts to Anita, but never heard back from her. Assuming that Anita had gone to work on Sunday, Mona didn't become immediately concerned. The next day, Monday, was Memorial Day. Mona got both a text and a phone call, but it wasn't from her sister Anita. Instead, it was from Anita's friend and landlord, Linda Greathouse. Anita rented a trailer on South Jackson Avenue in Joplin from Linda and her husband Todd. Prior to moving into the trailer, Anita had rented a room in Linda's and Todd's home on Prairie Flower Road in Webb City, about 6 miles away. As Mona read the content of the text from Linda, she immediately became concerned. The first text read, "This is Linda. Please call me ASAP regarding your sister." A short time later, another text came in that read, "Anita is missing." Mona was a bit confused about her sister's situation, but then she heard from Anita's daughter, Anna, and Anna informed Mona that Linda was at the police station. Mona knew something was definitely wrong. Another text came from Linda that read, "Anita was a no-call, no-show at work on Sunday." And this was further proof that something was wrong, as Anita was a loyal and dedicated employee that would never just not call or show up for work. Finally, Mona heard directly from the police themselves. Fearing that Anita may have been abducted, Mona texted Linda and asked her if either she or Todd had told the police that Anita's back door was broken and wouldn't shut securely. This was something that Anita had had an ongoing issue with. Linda replied that Todd had told the police about the door. The next text from Linda to Mona was an ominous one. It read, "It doesn't add up at all. This has made me sick wondering where she is. She would never leave her dogs. I'm just sick." Mona replied asking Linda if Anita had any people that she might have gone out with. And Linda texted that the entire time Anita rented a room from them, she hadn't had anybody over. This was turning into a nightmare for Mona, who was away for the Memorial Day weekend and not able to immediately help to find her sister. When Mona finally got the entire story about her missing sister, the situation became more alarming. Anita's wallet had been found by a young girl on Jackson Avenue in Joplin, outside of Anita's home. The girl brought the wallet home to her grandmother, who in turn called Joplin police. Police found Anita's driver's license inside of the wallet and sent an officer to the address listed on her license, which was the home of Linda and Todd Greathouse, where Anita had previously rented the room in Webb City. Apparently, Anita had never updated her address after moving out of their house. When police arrived to tell Anita that her wallet was found and could be picked up at the police station, Linda and Todd Greathouse told the officer that they were relatives of Anita's, and that although Anita didn't live with them, they would get in touch with her and let her know about her wallet. The Greathouses claim that after the police left, they went over to Anita's home on Jackson Avenue to let her know that her wallet was found, and that when they arrived, they saw Anita's black 2015 Kia in the driveway, but there was no sign of Anita. Being Anita's landlords, they let themselves into the house using a key, and immediately noticed that the back door was ajar, but that Anita's dogs were safely inside. The Greathouses then claimed that they thought Anita was out with family, and proceeded to clean up Anita's house for her. Even though Anita was nowhere in sight, her back door was broken, and her wallet was found in the street. Linda and Todd Greathouse never reached out to Anita's family to let them know something was wrong. Despite not calling Anita's family to see if they knew where she was, they did take the time to call Anita's employer, and were told that Anita didn't show up for work, nor had she called out. The Greathouses claimed that they returned to Anita's house again later on, and that she still wasn't there, at which point they went to the police station and filed a missing persons report. The Joplin Police Department put out a press release asking for help in finding Anita, which read as follows. The Joplin Police Department is currently in need of the public's assistance in locating Willianna Anita Dunn, who is reported as missing. Dunn is 61 years old and is approximately 5'2" and 120 pounds. She has past medical issues, and her family is concerned about her well-being. Her vehicle is accounted for, and her method of travel is unknown at this time. She was last heard from on May 28, 2016 at about 4 p.m. It is unknown what she was last wearing before her disappearance. She resides in the area of 11th and Jackson. Her driver's license photo is attached, and anyone who has information is urged to contact the Joplin Police Department. It wasn't until after reporting Anita missing at the police department that Linda Greathouse finally started texting Mona to let her know her sister was missing. And then police finally made contact with Anita's family. But from the beginning, something didn't sit right with Mona. When police learned that the Greathouses only contacted Anita's family after they reported her missing, it raised a red flag, and police immediately began to suspect that there was something wrong with their entire story. Police began to look closer at Linda and Todd Greathouse, and what they found was disturbing. And it didn't match in any way with what Anita's family knew about them. A quick check of Todd Greathouse's background revealed that he had served time in prison for a 1982 murder in Tennessee. Todd Greathouse had been convicted of beating and stabbing to death a man named Matt Hogan. Greathouse was charged with the first-degree murder of Hogan, but took a plea deal for second-degree murder and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. But after serving 25 years, he was paroled in 2008. Along the way, Todd Greathouse had married Linda while he was still in prison. Once paroled, Todd Greathouse was allowed to move to the state of Missouri via the Interstate Compact Agreement for Adult Offenders. The agreement allows authorized offenders to travel or to relocate across state lines as long as they are supervised. When police dug into Greathouse even further, they discovered that he had an open warrant for a drug charge, and that he had failed to show up for court to answer to the charges. This was clearly a parole violation, and he should have easily been sent back to prison in Tennessee for it. Police felt that Todd Greathouse was definitely involved in Anita's disappearance, and they brought him in for questioning. At first, Greathouse denied having anything to do with Anita's disappearance, but police didn't let up and continued to put pressure on him. And finally, Greathouse caved and admitted that he had been involved in Anita's disappearance. Police were not prepared for what he had to say. Todd Greathouse claimed that he and Anita had secretly been having an affair, and that he had gone to her house on Saturday night after she got home from the hospital. While there, an argument ensued, and Todd Greathouse claimed that Anita threatened to tell Linda Greathouse about the affair. In a panic, he physically attacked Anita, knocking her out. He then strangled her to death with a lamp cord. After he was sure that Anita was dead, he loaded her body into the trunk of his car, dropping her wallet in the process. He then drove her to a nearby flooded mine shaft, tied a rock around Anita's body, and dropped it down the shaft. Anita's body was successfully recovered from the mine shaft, and evidence found at the scene linked directly to Todd Greathouse. Police arrested Greathouse and charged him with first-degree murder. At trial, Todd Greathouse was convicted by a jury in less than a half hour of deliberation. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Linda Greathouse was not charged with any crimes related to this case. Anita's family had to deal with the aftermath of her murder, and they've had to live with the knowledge of how Anita died and how her body was disposed of like a piece of trash. But Anita's sister Mona is not going to let Anita's death be in vain. She joined me to discuss Anita's case, as well as her own efforts to create a registry to track people like Todd Greathouse. That conversation is next, after this word from our sponsor. The future of at-home hair color is here with Madison Reed. Gorgeous, salon-quality hair color delivered to your door for less than $25. For decades, women have had two options when it came to coloring their hair: outdated at-home hair color or the time and expense of a salon. Madison Reed is reinventing hair color with the quality of salon color, the convenience and affordability of at-home hair color, and an ammonia-free formula made with ingredients that you can feel good about. Don't you deserve to reward yourself from time to time? This is that time. Join the hundreds of thousands of busy women who have tried and loved this life-changing hair color hack. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com. Madison Reed would like to honor the Murder in My Family listeners with 10% off plus free shipping on their first color kit with promo code FAMILY. That's promo code FAMILY. Visit madison-reed.com.
These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
And now back to the show. Hi, Mona. Thank you for coming on the show to discuss your sister Anita's murder with me.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So was Anita your younger sister, or was she your older sister?
Anita is my older sister by 6 years.
And I know that sisters sometimes can have strong bonds or be best friends. Was that how your relationship was between the two of you?
Our relationship, as the older sister, as she was the older sister, I didn't grow up with the same friends as she did. She would take me places, end up dropping me off. I was probably the little sister that nagged her a lot, had to share a room with her as she was growing up. So our bond was not as a close sibling that was right at my age. Our relationship was, I had two older brothers, and so they were the core group, and I was the little sister that just kind of hung around all the time.
And then growing up as you got older and had, families or whatever, did you stay close? Did you stay in touch with each other closely after that?
Yes. We grew up in Dallas, Texas, in the 60s and 70s. And so as we grew older, she was married and had a child. Anna was her only daughter. And we were very close at that time. I was in high school and would come over and see her every day before I worked and spent a lot of time with her and Anna. After high school, we were apart for many years because she was married in Dallas. I moved to California, and she eventually came to move in California with me and my family and with Anna. And so we kind of reconnected then. And then later in life, we were apart again as I moved, and she remained in California with Anna, and I was here in Missouri. Eventually, she had remarried and moved to Missouri as her husband was dying of I was here, and I was here. And her husband died, and that left her here alone, and she got through that, and she helped me. Our mother had Alzheimer's, and so she would help with my mother also. And she went to work, and Anna had, at that time, had married and is in California with her children. So when she left California, she had that distance with Anna because of how far away she was. So we always, as far as closeness, always had our jokes together and teased other family members, good sense of humor. We spent a lot of time enjoying music, the same music, reliving our childhood, the good and bad that comes with childhood, the good and bad that comes with siblings. You always love your siblings, but, who doesn't have barriers or have squabbles that come with that, with your siblings. One of our brothers was killed back in the 1974, and when that happened, that kind of really changed things for our family. So we've all been through this before, and he was killed by a drunk driver. He was on honeymoon in a semi truck, the tractor trailer. The driver had been drinking and was doing drugs, some, at that time, amphetamines to stay awake. There were no laws with DOT those days. And his tractor trailer came off and hit my brother's truck, and they were both killed instantly, he and his wife. And so when that happened in 1974, that really changed everyone. Our parents, our relationships, and, the family went through some tough times, as any family would.
Yes, so that's the typical family. You have the good times, you have tragedies, but between typical sisters, you're both going through all that together, but also raising families and stuff. But along the way, you're still keeping in touch and staying as close as you can, it sounds like.
Always. Before cell phones, you talked for hours and hours and hours on the phone, and that's what we did. Not really writing letters, but talking on the phone all the time.
And if you can, tell us a little bit about Anita and who she was.
As a person, she was fiercely protective of her family. She spoke her mind. She was very strong in some ways and looked out for everyone, but she also had her weaknesses and, wanted to have closer relationships with her family members than sometimes she could. And I think all of that stemmed from the tragedy of our brother. So she enjoyed music. That was very important to her. And all of us, we all kind of drew together on, the music of the day. And her, she was very protective of her daughter growing up and fun. She loved to laugh. She loved the Western movies that we grew up with. Later in life, just before she was murdered, she really enjoyed and connected with her daughter and her grandchildren with the Harry Potter movies, and just had a love for life. And with her jobs over the years, she always worked in the medical profession. She worked for physicians. She was always in the service industry. At the time of her death, she worked for our local hospital in the housekeeping department and was assigned to the emergency department and loved working there. She could give them comfort to all the patients. She'd give them a blanket. She actually, in 2013, won the Employee of the Year in that department. And everyone loved her. patients, her co-workers, the physicians. And, she had times that she struggled, but she got through those things. She came out the other side and was doing really well in her life.
So it sounds like she's the kind of person that liked to help people and excel and do her best to do that.
She always excelled in her jobs and always wanted to help someone. And she had a lot of trust for people. She would help anybody that she could. If she, had $2 in her wallet, she'd give one away to help somebody. And she wouldn't ask for help. If she needed something, she didn't really want to ask anyone to help her. But she was always there for other people. And sometimes trust can be a difficult thing for someone when you trust someone too much and you have faith in other people.
So that sort of takes us into 2016 when this whole ordeal started for your family. It started out as a missing persons case. Anita was essentially gone and the police were looking for her. They put out an announcement. Walk us through how it was that Anita was discovered missing and how that unfolded.
Okay. Well, in May 28th of 2016, she was at her job and worked the full day. And I had sent some messages to her through text messages. And she responded later that evening. That Saturday evening, we corresponded through the text messages. On Sunday morning, the 29th of May, I responded back to her again and never had any reply from her all day. I knew she was supposed to work that day and assumed I would hear from her later, but I never did. Monday, the 30th, was Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day, and it was a normal day. We stay home and working outside. And I had a text message, a phone call, that Anita was missing. And from there, I was told that her wallet had been found in Joplin, and the police in the city, in Webb City, which is a small suburb of Joplin, Missouri, the police officers in Webb City went to the house that was listed on her driver's license. And the couple at that location were friends of hers. She had rented a room and a small trailer at their house for a while to live in. She had in the past worked with the female and were friends. And they told the police that she did not live there with them, that they were family, and they would be in touch with her to let her know that her wallet was at the Joplin Police Department. So Monday they went to her house and that they were renting to her, and they found her car. They had keys to her house, so they went in, and I was told that the back door was ajar and open and broken, and her dogs that she treasured at that time just about more than anything were there, and her keys were there to her car, her brand new car. This is Something she had never had before was a brand new car. But there was no Anita. No one knew where she was. So they cleaned up, left, thought maybe she was with her family. But never notified us. Late Monday afternoon on the 30th, they went to her house again, and she wasn't there. So they went to the police station and filed a missing persons report. And that's when the call was made to us, when the police had asked what her family, if she was with her family, then they hadn't contacted us. They had been going to her house 3 different times before anyone ever notified us, and which concerned me from the very beginning. So they filed a missing persons report, and the police called us and called her daughter, Anna, called me, called her work. Her work, she had not been into work. She was a no-show on Sunday the 29th. And when they called me, I told them the circumstances of who that couple was and how my sister knew them, and that we had not been notified, which always bothered me, because if she was not at home, why would we not be called? Maybe she was at our house for the Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend is when my brother was killed, and no one in our family goes anywhere on Memorial Day. Everyone's always at home. So maybe she would have been up here with us. But that never arose. So they never asked us.
So that set off red flags for you in your mind, because that wasn't like her to go missing. And I guess you found it suspicious that this couple that was running her the house, they had gone multiple times supposedly and never bothered to call anybody.
Correct. They went multiple times to her house. The specific words were used to me that they cleaned up because the dogs were there, and they were getting nervous that she wasn't there. And they called her work and verified that she had not shown up to work on that Sunday, but they still never called anyone in her family until they went to file a police report. Who does that? Who files a police report of a missing person without contacting the family members? No one. And I said at that time, this sounds like an ID channel movie right here. This makes no sense at all. And we were very concerned.
One thing that we should point out is one reason for concern was because one of the people there, the husband, had something in his past that was concerning. What was that?
That's correct. He did. In 1982, he was arrested for murder in Tennessee, where he was at with his family members at an acquaintance's house. And in the middle of the night, he hit that young man with a brick and murdered him, stabbed him multiple times, stole his car and all of his things in his house and left. And his cousins were there in the house also, asleep. He was caught right away. He was sent to jail. He was given a 50-year sentence. He was never the model prisoner while he was in Tennessee. He tried to escape. He had multiple times that he was caught for drugs while in jail or in prison, and multiple times attempted to be released on parole. After 25 years, they released him. He was 20 years old when this happened. And we did not know that. Our understanding from my sister that they were all from Michigan, and had no idea that he was in Tennessee for murder. So when we found those things out, that was very concerning. And of course, I did a lot of research at that time to find out the truth, because everything had been lies. And that's the basis of everything they do, is lies. So it was very concerning to learn those things. The Joplin Police Department was unbelievable. Their detectives called us right away. They used every resource available to investigate this as a missing persons, and then as a possible homicide. And that's because there was another warrant for him. He was released in Tennessee in 2008. The Interstate Compact Agreement he filed to move to Missouri. He has family here in Missouri and his wife, and Missouri accepted him. And there's requirements for checking in and reports that go back to Tennessee. So he had a parole officer here in Joplin. In March of 2016, before all of this happened, he was arrested for marijuana charge. He had a court date that he did not go to. And had he done that, had the warrant for his arrest been issued and follow up, he should have been in jail that weekend that he murdered my sister. The marijuana charge alone, according to the Interstate Compact Agreement, is not enough to revoke his parole and send him back to Tennessee, to jail, prison. But it would have been enough that he would have been in jail. But he gave a false address to the court system, and he was a no-show on his court date. And the parole department, the communication isn't quick enough to get through all of those entities.
And let's just back up for 1 second. So the man that we're talking about here is named Todd Greathouse, and he was Anita's landlord. How did police zero in on him as a suspect and come to the conclusion that he had been responsible for the murder of your sister?
I believe because they met with him. He and his wife made the missing persons report. They met him out at her house. He showed them the door, her back door that was broken, that he had fixed before she moved into that house, which did not belong to them. And their investigation and questioning and looking up those two individuals, because when they spoke with me, I was suspicious. I think they found his record, and he was arrested for that outstanding bench warrant, and they began questioning him further. And ultimately, they looked at her phone records and talked with him, talked with her, his wife, interviewed both of them, They had massive media out in Joplin on Facebook, everywhere, and the news media. And I think they had over 70 tips that came in. They investigated every one of those. They talked to every neighbor. ultimately, I don't know the exact thing that led them to him other than his past, and they started investigating him. And eventually, they found pings on her phone and where it ended. And that's where they found her. And they found, he confessed ultimately.
Did his wife have any involvement in any of the crime?
I was told by the police department that they did not have any evidence that could connect her. I know.
So she was never charged with any kind of crimes involving her sister?
That's correct.
And so when he does confess, he ultimately, gives them information. And as you mentioned, they're tracking her phone. They're trying to figure out where she's at. They did find out that her body had been disposed of in a mine shaft. And they were able to retrieve Anita's remains. And I can only imagine that's bittersweet for your family because they did find her, but at the same time, you have to deal with the fact that she was discarded like that. How difficult was that, just knowing that somebody could do that to your sister?
It was heartbreaking. How can anybody do that to another person, let alone someone that trusts you so much and had known you? And, the only type of person that can do that is a serial killer, a serial murderer. That's who does those things. It is not normal. It was unbelievable when, the police talked with us, and Anna flew in from California, and during their entire investigation, we knew basically nothing. We had no idea what to do. Do we make flyers? Do we get out door to door? We were told, no, we will keep you informed. And ultimately, his story is that they were having a relationship, a very brief relationship. And he went over to her house and they got in an argument because she said she was going to tell his wife. And he hit her. She had a skull fracture. He strangled her 3 different ways. He used his hands. He strangled her. She passed out. And this is from his testimony. She was making noises. So he got a towel and wrapped around her throat. And he strangled her again. And then he cut off the lamp cord and put that around her neck. And killed her. He took her body. He wrapped it up. He put it in the car. He drove to a gas station to go get a cup of coffee, drank his coffee, drove out to a mine shaft, a site where he had worked and was working, and went to work the day after. He dumped her in this 100-foot mine shaft that was flooded and smoked a cigarette afterwards. And the police officers found that cigarette butt with his DNA on it. And, yeah.
Just cold-blooded and ruthless.
Ruthless. When he had a lawnmower cord in his car and tied that to a concrete block out at this dump site and threw her in this flooded mine shaft. He had taken her purse, some jewelry, a gun that she had, and threw those things around. Not the gun, mind you. He kept the gun and took that to his other job and hid it. But he threw her purse. They found clothing all thrown in the area around the mine shaft. The wallet had fallen out when he was putting her in his car at her house. The wallet was found by a little girl riding her bicycle on the street, and she took it to her grandmother, who turned it into the police. That's how all of this got started. My sister, when she would leave, when she was single, she might go to Texas to live with my brother. She might go to Las Vegas to live with my other brother. She might go to California. All of us always knew. We all stayed in touch. We knew where she was going. We knew her whereabouts. They didn't count on her family saying something, or they didn't count that she would ever be found. That was the goal. And they could say, well, she up and left. We don't know where she's at. She didn't do that. She never left without someone knowing where she was.
You touched on the mention of some of these details are coming out in court. Did you or anybody else in the family attend the trial?
We all did. Anna, being from California, when he was arrested, all through the pre-trial hearings, I went to all of those because Anna was in California and her family and her job. I live here close, and so I went to all those pre-trial hearings. The prosecuting attorneys, they were fabulous to keep us informed. Yes, the trial, my family went, our friends. Anna, of course, was here. Anna had to testify at the trial. Our sister-in-law from California, or from Texas, was here. So, yes, there were many family members. It was crowded.
And how hard was it to sit through and listen to all those details about what happened?
It was very hard. While we had seen his videotaped confession before the trial, it was still difficult to hear it and to see it and to hear him say his callousness, his cold-blooded, his lack of any emotion. He just said, look, I'm telling you, I killed her. That's all, folks. And threw his hands out. That's all, folks. And then he testified at the trial. He got on the stand and again gave another whole story than what he told officers, and he recorded. He got on the stand and said, well, she got a gun out. And she laid a gun on the table, and he came out of the bathroom, and he was scared, and he just wanted to get out of there. He was scared because that gun was laying there. So he really wanted to get out of there, so he just hit her and strangled her so he could get out of there. And that's a lie. They never had an affair. She had talked, and, you know, the things that family knows are hearsay in the court system. I understand that. But she had told her mother-in-law, who lives here, that she visited frequently, that she was afraid of him. He was coming to her house late at night, at 10 o'clock at night, bringing mail. And she told her mother-in-law, that's not right. And she was actively looking for another place to live, close to her mother-in-law. So when he says that he was there that night, and she told him, I'm going to tell your wife, I have no doubt she probably said that to him. And I believe that she said that to him in the way that, you better leave me alone, you better quit coming over here, or I'm going to tell her. And that's what I believe started the argument, and he hit her. He was not going to have a chance, give her a chance to tell what he had been doing. But that's not the story, his story. that he gave. And there was never any evidence of any affair, just the words of a murderer. And if he can murder, he can lie.
And the jury didn't buy his story and they found him guilty. What kind of sentence did he get?
He was given murder in the first degree without the possibility of parole. The jury returned a verdict in 26 minutes.
And
Very quick.
I know that him going to jail for the rest of his life definitely is not going to bring back Anita.
Yes.
But does that give you any kind of peace or any kind of closure, just knowing that he can't ever do this to somebody else?
Well, it does. It's the conviction we were wanting. Initially, they talked about a death penalty case, which I was in favor of, but we supported, and we support our police officers, our judicial system here, and they obtained the correct conviction. And closure, no, we don't have any closure, but having him sitting in jail for the rest of his life in prison, I hope that will be the case. He's filed appeals, which can go on for years, and I think we'll still be fighting that. And I think in the future, you never know what legislation is going to change that may give him an opportunity to be out. And I hope that's not the case. I will, and I do, continue to follow all of his appeals, and I will be at every hearing. I will be at anything that involves him getting his chance to speak, because I will too. I will fight until I die to keep him where he's at.
So Anita will have a voice in you.
She will always have a voice. I could not protect her that night from being murdered, but at least I can protect her and hopefully others in the future from ever having the same fate.
These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
And that's one thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about. You talk about protecting others in the future. And before you go, I wanted to talk to you about a registry that you're involved in, something that might help people in the future. Tell me a little bit about the registry that you're working on.
I'm currently working on a state register. I'm in the beginning stages of this, talking with our local representatives, our state representatives here in Missouri, who have been very supportive at this stage for a amendment and some law reform to mandate that anyone that is released on parole with a conviction of murder in the first degree or second degree, because it happens, unfortunately, or anyone that is accepted through the Interstate Compact Agreement into Missouri, that they will be on a violent offender database. And I want that to include their name, their address, their photo. I want to know the conviction of the information of the crime that they had committed, because they can lie about what their conviction was. Frequently, I see that they will tell people that they were in jail for an assault and they were defending a woman or in a bar. And those things just aren't true. And unless you know the truth of what they were in prison for, you can't make a rational decision of if you want this person to be your landlord. Do you want this person mowing your lawn? Do you want this person making your cabinets and coming into your home to measure for cabinets? And I want to know the length of their prison term. And with this register, several states already have this register. Montana adopted it in 1995. Oklahoma, Kansas, Indiana, Ohio's got some legislation that is pending right now, Sarah's Law. And it's time for Missouri to get on board and do that also. There's a lot of debate about having offenders register. They will not be able to get jobs. They won't have a fair chance in the community to reassimilate. And I just don't believe that's true. This murderer had a $30,000 a year job in a good company here in Joplin. He had a second job that he worked, which is where he dumped my sister's body. He owned his own home. His wife was very active and had a good job, and they assimilated. They had my sister trusting and believing them. She rented from them. She had worked with his wife, which is where she met them both, and trusted them, had faith in them, that they were willing to help her, and they didn't.
If this register was around, then perhaps it could have helped Anita if she had access to something like that to make a decision if that's the kind of landlord she would have wanted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because she had said that they were all from Michigan and moved here from Michigan, which was a lie. And if you get on websites for, like in Missouri, it's called CaseNet, and you put in names of those individuals, there's nothing in Michigan, but there sure is in Tennessee. And how would we know that? You can't find out those things. And I believe everybody, if a person is on parole for a violent crime and they want to assimilate back into the community, I'm all for that. But I have the right to know. Just like a sex offender that's living, in the same town. I have the right to know. I'm not denying anyone an opportunity to get a job, and they can. They can get all the employment they want. But I want to know someone's history.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem like too much to ask, and I hope, I wish you luck getting that legislation passed through and that register set up so that, something like this doesn't happen to somebody else.
Thank you. Our local legislators, our law enforcement, they're fabulous. They're fabulous in this area, and everyone has been very supportive, and I'm moving forward. It's an election year, so come November, we'll see who's there. But I'm going to move forward and fight for this law reform so that we have that available. And it's really going on in multiple states. And hopefully at some point we'll have a national register.
Now, if there's anybody listening in your area that wants to help support this legislation or get this register started, is there a specific website that they can go to learn more about it?
I don't have my website up yet. That's in process. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, so they can go to both of those and look me up through that, Mona Kaylor, with a C, A-Y-L-O-R. And I would be happy to talk with them.
Well, when that goes through, and hopefully it does, you just let me know, and I'll be happy to share that with the audience as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your support and what you're doing for victims of all types across the country. It's important to have that coverage.
Well, I appreciate that, Mona, and I appreciate you talking about something so personal. I know Anita's story of what happened with her isn't easy to talk about, so I appreciate you and your family opening up about it.
Thank you. What you do is very valuable to all families, and I know all your listeners just appreciate how much work you put in to all of these cases and learning about each individual and respecting the victims so much.
Yeah, I definitely want to have a voice for these victims and let people know that this happens to real people and it shouldn't happen. And
because it's not what happens out there. It's all right here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Murder in My Family. As we wrap up this episode, please be sure to check out these previews for 2 true crime podcasts I'm excited to share with you. The first is for Ignorance Was Bliss, and the second is for True Crime Storytime. And remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.
That's horrible.
That's true.
So strange.
Usually.
I can't imagine what that's like.
Do you want to?
That could never happen to me.
It might.
Lock him away. He's pure evil. Or insane.
Or human. My name's Kate. I have worked as a forensic psychologist, as well as in prisons and as a crisis clinician. My job was to figure out who gets locked up and who gets a key. To find the humanity in inhumane situations. So, are you sure you really want to know?
Yeah, maybe.
Because by the end of the episodes, you just might end up thinking...
I felt better before I knew that.
You can find me at IWB Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, sometimes Instagram, or you can email me at iwbpodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Samantha.
And we're the hosts of True Crime Storytime, a podcast for all things true crime.
We will be bringing you fortnightly episodes covering everything from murder and mysteries, disappearances, theft and fraud,
Abductions and kidnappings, and more importantly, trying to take a lesson away from each case, because every story has a message.
There's so many victims, and we have to have support for them and be their voices.
Absolutely.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.